welcome everybody to Help the Helpers, a beautiful spring day in New York. And we have the delight of finally having Laura and Karen talking to us about right brain, left brain, and all kinds of things. Karen will tell you a little history of how they got here. Laura wants to be introduced as a member of the group and having a passion for right brain, left brain. And I want to say that I would also introduce Laura as a very thoughtful, sensitive, dedicated therapist. And Karen has a whole little history to tell us. And Karen, your background is in something completely different of photography and design. And it will be very interesting to see how that goes together. So why don't I ask Karen first to tell us this little history, and then we'll go right into our program.
Thank you, Lynn. I'll just give you a little quick map of Laura. So Laura saw a post, well, it was toward the end of 2017, and we were finishing up our FOT training with Charlotte Howarth in New York City. And Laura saw a post by Greg Madison, and it was about Ian McGilchrist's The Master and the Emissary, and she got really interested in it, and then she told me about it, and we started reading, and it just really helped us understand focusing in a deeper way. And like, other than just like the pieces of focusing, like the parts of it and that you kind of get in a training. So it was like, it just had it had a different feel, and it was this lens, and it was like, oh, how does the right brain, left brain integrate focusing? So we got really excited about it, and we decided that we were going to do a roundtable for the Institute, with the Institute, and people there just hadn't really heard about it yet. So we had to sort of connect the dots, and we brought in we did research, and we found some information by Peter Afford, a British focuser, and he was in the process of writing a book on it, which is out now. It's about neuroscience, but a lot of it is about focusing. So we used that as a springboard to do our roundtable, and it really garnered a lot of interest. We ended up having to do two because there were so many people that were interested. And then Laura used that to group of people that were interested there to do a year and a half book club on reading The Master and the Emissary. So that's our interest, and it continues. And so here we are again with something a little different, because this is more focusing on experiential ways to integrate. So it's not the same thing that we did. It's sort of something evolving. So thank you, Lynn, for that opportunity to.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Yeah, so our purpose here was to try to have space where people could feel into the felt sense of the left and right brain, rather than it being more of a didactic informational thing. That being said, our left hemispheres came up with a really nice table that we sent you in the handout, and I asked Christine to put that in the chat, just in case you want to review it. But let's start with an attunement, because that's what we do. So just we're going to briefly explore the felt sense of attending to the world from left and right hemisphere perspectives. So getting in a comfortable position. And first noticing tight, narrow attention of the left hemisphere. Allow a rising of a wanting to do something, a wanting to grasp something, a wanting to pin something down. Feeling into a self that values certainty, the right answers, the correct formula, the rules that govern this whole divided brain thing, for example. This is a self that likes things spelled out, defined, explicit. Perhaps a self that even now is saying, yeah, well, what is this good for? What can I do with these ideas about a divided brain? And just feeling into the self that could have these thoughts. A self for which truth is something that is consistent with known logical systems. And anything that doesn't fit that, it's disregarded, it's cut off. Its world is populated by pieces and parts and things that are the sum of their parts. And its focus is narrow attention to detail that's fixed on what's central in the foreground. What's the main figure? What's isolated and separate from all that surrounds it? And just being aware of a self that thinks of such a thing. And now see if there is an image or a phrase or a movement or a gesture that comes and matches that self. Now bring your awareness to the periphery of your vision. Open up awareness to the broad, expansive view of the right hemisphere, as if to take in like 180 degrees of your visual field. Feeling into a self that wants to connect with environment, that's not separate from it. Notice an interest in opening things up into possibility. A seeing of beauty or excited opportunity in what is not yet known. A welcoming of fresh, unique experience. Perhaps a self that might say something like, what's the goofiest thing I could do right now? And who would do it with me? A playful self. Noticing a self that sees the subtle, the implicit, the implied aspects of communication. The self that can read between the lines. And a whole that is always more than the sum of its parts. that can hold multiple perspectives and feel empathy with the point of view of another, capable of seeing the whole picture, a central figure and background. And it can also notice exceptions and anomalies, what doesn't fit as well as what does. Sensing into a self whose world is a flowing stream of experience. And now see if an image or a phrase or a movement or a gesture comes that matches that self. And returning your attention once more to the breath. And when you're ready, opening eyes, returning to our space. So it turns out that the two hemispheres that we have are not the same. They're asymmetrical. And even if we look at the architecture of the brain, we see this. I'm not going to go into great detail because I am not a neuroscientist. But things like in nerve cells on the left hemisphere, the dendrites, which are the part of the cell that reaches out and makes connection, are short. That in the right hemisphere, they're very long and highly myelinated to be able to quickly transmit across spaces. So the question arises is evolutionarily, why did that happen? And Ian McGilchrist's theory is that it developed because we and other animals and birds who also have this asymmetrical structure, that we all need to perform the task of eating without getting eaten by something in our environment. He has this really nice little analogy where you're a bird and there's a particular known seed that you want to eat. And the familiar and the known are part of the left hemisphere sphere, right? It's a known outcome. And there's all these pebbles, and you have to have the fine, detailed awareness to pull out the seed. And at the same time that you're so focused like that, you also don't know what's around you in the environment. You don't know what's coming. And that's the per domain of the right hemisphere, to have that spacious and openness. And these awarenesses don't work at the same time. They go back and forth. So I just want to pause there for a minute and see what your experience was when we did the attunement, or what you're curious about. I typically teach, when I'm teaching Buddhism, by writing down every single word that I'm going to say, a very left brain approach. But I'm trying to be a little more spontaneous here and be part of the interaction, see all of us as part of the interaction that's learning. So I'm curious, and maybe we can be a little conversational and improvisational, to quote our guru over there. And what's intriguing to you about this, or maybe nothing is, and you're just showing up on a Monday morning. So yeah, just want to open it up, and then we'll go back and try another little experiential exercise. Liz.
Well, the first image that came to me was a kaleidoscope
I love the fact that everything is contained, you know, it's more what I would imagine left brain. And then the complement to that was an image of Seurat's painting and the dots, how each dot has a particular feeling and gesture, and then again you get a different sort of environment. So I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the right hemisphere includes all of it, right? The detail and the whole picture. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
I love the framing of the right brain as being spacious and open in monitoring the environment for threat. Usually, and I've taught this material, that comes from stress and trauma, we consider, the orienting response to be fight or flight narrowing. So there's something really beautiful about feeling that is actually like this kind of more relaxed and spacious orienting. I love that.
Well, that brings up a really good point, Stuart. It's like the right brain, good stuff could come too, a potential mate, it's the unknown. We don't know. And I think at least Bonnie Babinock, one of our references that we used a lot, she talks about how actually when we face actual danger, there's a shift into our left hemisphere.
Right.
And maybe that feels right to people. Like there's a narrowing down. What do I do here? Nadi.
Thank you, Laura. Hi.
Hi.
I had such an interesting experience because as you were guiding us into feeding into our left hemisphere, I felt like when I was at school and teachers made me focus on something and think about, for example, maths, and I was very good at that because I had to be good at everything, but I didn't enjoy it. It was like, oh, this is hard work. This is now, and then when you switched to the right hemisphere, it was like, now I am enjoying this. So different experiences.
Wow.
And both needed, of course.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about, Frida, please.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I made a sketch. I don't know if it's seen with closed eyes. That was for the left brain, like a square. Square helping me to get attuned to the job world in my dreamy-like states, which is a normal state. But the left brain is good for that, to get this window of clarity, right? So that I can interact in job issues. And the right brain was an image standing on a hill looking over the sea. This is the sea where the skies and the ocean are meeting in a wide space. And that was at the shore of East Sea in ex-DDR, or at ex-GDR, the East German Republic. And there always is a special smell in those houses from that time, and I could smell the smell. And this is something usually that doesn't happen in focusing, right? That I get the smell, but I got it now. So thank you.
The first version of that attunement I did was like 15 minutes long. It was too long, but I noticed that my right brain, as I was writing, it moved me into the senses, and that's partly because that's the way the brain is wired. More of our sensory inputs go to the right hemisphere than the left. Monica, yes.
Hi, yes, yes, this smell, I'd love to have that smell described, Frida. Because I'm working with perfume, with making perfumes, and the concept of the smell and the dream of the smell and the imagining of the smell is that dreamy place, and but then to recreate that smell with ingredients and with aroma chemicals and essential oils and such requires that left brain. And I remember that obsession that I would get into with how to create it, and that's the fun part is it's both fun, both sides are fun, but without the crossover, it's how well I cross over is how successful the ascent is going to be. And I imagine there's something like that with many forms of art.
What a great example and a great lead in to what I want to do next. Okay, so bringing up the movement of it, how do they relate to each other, the left and right hemisphere? McGilchrist has a quote. He says, "There's a typical pattern in the way the hemispheres relate. The origins and the end lie in the right hemisphere's world, but it's greatly enriched by what the left hemisphere can unpack along the way. That middle stage of making parts temporarily explicit, identifiable, before they're once more reintegrated into the whole is crucial. Yet it cannot be the end point." Should I read that again? There's a typical pattern in the way the hemispheres relate. The origin and the end lie in the right hemisphere's world. Frida's experience of the smell, but it's greatly enriched by what the left hemisphere can unpack along the way, the middle stage of making the parts temporarily explicit, identifiable, before they're once more reintegrated into the whole, is crucial. Yet it cannot be the end point. So I don't know about you, but to me, that sounded a bit like focusing. In focusing, we start by moving our awareness inward and we wait for what comes. We don't know what's coming. It's not outcome driven. This is the right brain processing, being in the present moment and sensing what's there. We wait for what has not yet been put into words, the implicit, but is here right now in our present experience. In contrast, the quick responses are usually left brain answers. They're not fresh, they're already known, they're conceptual. As we focus, we explore our awareness in the present moment without a goal or purpose in mind, the right brain. And on the other hand, having a destination would be a left brain goal-oriented process. But what we're doing is as we explore, we notice what comes, and then the left brain helps us unpack it. The left brain enters with an assist, maybe a word or a phrase that describes or symbolizes our process, our experience. But these are just suggestions from the left brain. We need to check with our right brain for a fit between the embodied felt experience and the proposed description for this experience. For me, this checking can feel like looking for a yes in the body. That's it. This is the description I was looking for. And that can come with like a physical sensation of knowing, of an opening, or even tears. On the other hand, the proposed description might not fit, and then we feel the wrongness. And this too can move us forward if we have the space to attend to the contrast between the proposed description and the felt sense. So we're moving from the narrow focus of the left brain to the more expansive right brain. And then this way, the not right gives us more information about what would be a better fit. We're continually shifting back and forth between right brain expansiveness and left brain precision, I would say. How are we doing on time? I wanted to touch on one other point. Often it can be that it seems like we're demonizing the left hemisphere, but Karen and I especially wanted to highlight how the hemispheres can work in a very nice way that really designed. It's Ian McGilchrist's theory that right now, this culture, this time we're tilting toward left hemisphere dominance. And that's throwing things off kilter because the left hemisphere doesn't have the open vision of the right hemisphere. It has, its interest in the world is to be able to manipulate it, to grasp things. I think of it as the right brain is this flow of experience, all the sensory input from both inside our senses and out. And the left hemisphere comes and tries to grab that flow and make it into a thing so it can do something with it, so it can work in its world on that. So people will talk about it as a representing, like the original is in the right hemisphere and then the left hemisphere takes it so we can do it. The right hemisphere is much more interested, and I know I'm simplifying and please forgive me for that, but the right hemisphere is much more interested in understanding the world and relating to it. So it's a much more relational place. The left hemisphere doesn't even have more than one perspective. And I certainly can feel that when I'm, really stuck in a place where maybe I had an argument with someone and it's just, I'm making my case over and over and over again. And to be able to shift out of that and have somebody else's point of view, it's just not part of that modality. So the felt sense of me, mine, that's left hemisphere process. And one of the ways that I play with these concepts is what would the we be here? What's the we interested in? So let's see, how are we doing on time? We are good. We have 1 minute to spare. That's my left hemisphere.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can I have a question?
Yes, and then we'll move on to Karen has a nice.
It sounds like this all relates to ADD too, like very much so. Like maybe the left hemisphere not being active or incorporated enough or something.
Or distracted. See, the left hemisphere is actually good at inhibiting the right hemisphere. Because you can imagine when you're doing a task that requires detail, you don't want to be distracted from a picture of what's going on in the environment. The right hemisphere doesn't inhibit the left as much because it's doing a global view. So yeah, very much. Karen, you're up.
Thank you, Laura. So we're going to do another experiential. We're going to do clearing a space, which most focusers, maybe except for those that have done Anne's training, because she doesn't do clearing a space. We're going to do clearing a space with the arts, which is from Lori Rappaport, and Laura and I both did Lori's training. So it's FOAT. So I'll just say really briefly that we decided to pick this because it's a great tool for integrating like both the left and the right hemisphere. Like it's a great process. And I myself have used it quite a bit, like since I learned clearing a space years ago in FOT training, for like just disidentifying from stressors or issues. I mean, so it has that ability as a standalone process, as well as like prior to focusing. But I've been a student coach lately in Lori's program, and I sort of revisited it again and had like I don't know, I don't know why, but like something, like I sort of really focused on an aspect of it, which is once the space is cleared, and once you put everything at the right distance, the sort of inhabiting the all fine place or the cleared space, and just the sense of how I was really able to access like a place that is often difficult for me, which is like something that's totally intact, like or like untouched by whatever's happening for me. Like frequent, like it was just, and like I use it now during my, going through my day, that I can just access it like much more readily. So, and I think um the way she does it, where with the arts, um and she concretizes that, like a bit of it. So um it just has this quality of, like, for me, like staying with me. So that's kind of why I wanted to do it with you guys. So if people there, I know there are several people on here that do work with arts and do work with art materials, and we did put that in the invitation. But no worries if you don't, because there's plenty of other ways to express the felt sense without the arts. So just going in, don't no worries if that's not something that you feel that comfortable with. And just to add to that, the in terms of the arts, it's about process, not about product. So no one has to be an artist. Okay, so we'll start. So just take a few moments to make yourself comfortable. Notice the weight of your body on the chair. And the feel of your feet on the floor. Becoming aware of your breath as it moves through your body. Sensing the inhales and the exhales. Just letting the breath be as it is. If it feels right, take another moment. Feel the support and the groundedness of the earth below. And a sense of the sky and the universe above. As you tune into that whole center area of your body, just sense how you are on the inside right now. You may feel jumpy, or calm, or warm or tight. Just saying hello to whatever is there. Opening yourself up to receive whatever you are noticing with an open, curious, non-judgmental, allowing attitude. And when you feel ready, ask inside, what's between me and feeling all fine, or at peace, or all calm, or all okay? Whatever word is right for you. What's between me and feeling all fine right now? Let whatever comes come up. Don't go inside any particular thing right now. Just knowing you can always come back to it. As each thing comes up, imagine placing it at some distance from you. Perhaps on a park bench or inside a box. Or use imagery like sitting on the beach and putting all of the things that stand between you and feeling all fine onto a boat. Or wrapping each issue or concern up in a package. Or any other way you might imagine. Some things may want to be close and others far away. Trust the distance that feels right. We're going to check inside again. Leaving the things that you set aside at a distance. Ask inside, is there anything else between me and feeling all fine right now? If anything comes up, find a way to put it at the right distance. Sometimes there's a background feeling that we're always carrying, a chronic feeling that is always there and may be subtle to perceive. It may be something like always a little anxious, always kind of tired, always a bit depressed, or some other always feeling. Check inside and see if there is a background feeling that's in the way of feeling all fine or at peace or all okay, or any word you may have chosen. If so, place it at a distance that feels right between you and it. We're going to check once more. Take a gentle breath and ask, is there anything else between me and feeling all fine right now? If something else comes, just place it at the right distance, knowing that you can always come back to it at another time. When the space feels all clear, we'll move on to the next step. Keeping everything at a distance, I'd like to invite you to bring your attention to the all fine place, or at peace place, or all okay place. See if there's an image, a word, a phrase, a gesture, a metaphor, a sound, or even a song that matches that all fine place. Check it against your body for a sense of rightness. If not, invite a new image, word, phrase, gesture, or sound that describes your all fine place. When you feel ready, feel free to express your felt sense of the all fine place in whatever modality feels right to you. Visual art, gesture, movement, sound, writing. Some people prefer to create the expression of only the all fine place, while others like to create the things that were set aside, or a combination of both. Trust what feels right to you. You'll have about 5 minutes to write or draw, or just sit with whatever has come for you. Then we'll go into the dyads, and there'll be some instructions in the chat.
Are we all back?
I think we are.
Oh, nice marks, Katrina. I like that. I haven't been able to get mine to do that. So how did that go?
Bob is lit up. I don't know if that means you're,
Well, I may as well.
yes.
I just was how'd that go? I had a wonderful conversation with, and we really went into what all this implied. Well, what not only was the image from the left and right brain, an awareness of that, but what the next step was. We just sort of let the conversation go to that, and it was a wonderful a synergy between us in this conversation. It was very, very enlightening.
Who were you with? We missed who you were with.
Steph.
Steph. Okay.
Very cool. So it got you in the flow.
It did, and I ended my piece of it with, I'm not like this with everybody. with Steph, I was like that. With someone else, I may not be. So how the right and left brains affected by the environment who were with.
Yeah, very much. I feel like when I have an interested audience, all this stuff comes out of me. Most people, when I talk about this, slowly back away.
Really?
Yeah. Well, people who, I could go on a while. My son rolls his eyes. It's like, what? You're again referring to how this has to do with the left and right hemisphere. But it is a lens that's very helpful for me in terms of looking at Jean Genlin's philosophy, Buddhism. It sort of gives me an orientation reference point.
I want to say the last thing, one of the last things you said, or whoever said, so how would bring focus on how you would feel if everything was gone? Your space is totally clear. Now everything is right. And I haven't done that. I forgot about that step. Blah. I should go back and read Jen Lin's book, which is so valuable to me. It's like getting readjust. It's like chiropractic for the focusing world, reading Jen Lin's book again. And I realized I'm having a very bad confetti day, but that was so valuable to me. In fact, I felt like when I feel I'm on a road, I was hitchhiking across the country, and I realized after I was on the road for a week, all of my concerns were gone. I had no appointments. No one was expecting me to show up because I'm on a stone road in the middle of Georgia. No responsibilities. And I realized how kids stepped out on the road to hitchhike and they just never came home because the feeling was so marvelous. So thank you for that. And my partner and I in our room, it turns out we both have great experience living in Boston. And we're talking about the body feel of driving in Boston. To live in Boston in that realm area, it's uphill wherever you go. It is uphill in effort.
Effort, yeah. I was trying to imagine a hill that would only go up. But the effort of that, yeah, and the bodily feel of it. Would anybody else like to share? If not, we've got more stuff. Yeah, Dorothy.
Yeah, I don't know if I could articulate it because it feels like in some other realm of unconscious experience. I struggled a bit with the left and right brain idea. I've always liked it because I'm so left brain and it's like so underdeveloped with the right brain. Like I'm drawn to certain aspects of it for sure. But then when it came down to doing the exercise, I just wanted to escape all intellectual thought. I was like, no more, like no more thinking. It's getting in my way. So I ended up like doing this figure 8, which I've learned from a Qigong teacher and some other teacher that I don't know why. It's supposed to be soothing. It's supposed to relate to something, but I did it on my eye to soothe myself around my eyes, the figure 8. And then I did it in the drawing, and it just was so soothing and calming and got me so out of my head. And then I was able to go to from a place of should, like talking to my niece and saying I wanted to get together with her daughter, and she had a way of doing it where we all get together. And I wanted, which I didn't express to her, I wanted to just meet up with her daughter alone because I hadn't seen her in a few years.
Yeah.
It's like just going to the process of going to what I wanted. So, I don't know if that fits into left and right brain. I just felt I went into my own experiential process.
Yeah, this
I
is what
needed
I want. I want to connect with her. Yeah.
Right. And I needed to find a way to go, another way to go inside. The clearing a space was a starting point for sure, and it got me to what I wanted, but then I needed to go deeper. And that's my challenge. Like, how do you go inside and not let the other dominate? So it was revealing and helpful to me, ultimately.
I don't know if I said this to the group or just Lynn, but what you're describing to me, it seems like your left brain knew about how you could do this technique, and that would help you get into your right brain. Like we can feed our left brain with concepts. After all, the focusing steps are kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
And so that maybe we'll remember it and actually use it to be able to access that all fine place or the right hemisphere. Anybody else who would like to? Stuart, would you like me to read the chat, or would you like to say it to the group?
I was just going to say, so interesting, Dorothy, because what you're saying is that your right brain actually cooked up, without knowing it logically, exactly the right time-honored left-right hemispheric integration thing that sounds like you did somatically as well as externally, gesturally. So big wow. Big wow. I mean, that was perfect technique. And I wanted to comment before, Laura, how interesting, right? You were saying, boy, when I talk about this, like in certain groups, people fall asleep or check out. But there's something about being part of a group where the sense of what our offering is and all these kinds of things helps then give shape to a different balance of left, right. And, your offering for this one over here was riveting and illuminating. So, so it's not just that you had a good audience and I was ripe for it, but it's something about the whole, the we are helped you probably be as clear about this as you've ever been. So bravo to you, my friend, and thank you.
So we were the interaction, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I want to refer what you said, Laura, that it is important with what we feed our left brain, what kind of information we take in. And I think of that in wider perspective, like with political situations and groups and all that, and what kind of theory we take in. What I found with the exercise so surprising for me, that because you and Karin talked about the left brain interaction, so to say, right? I had for first time in my life an all-fine place which was not in my belly, but in my shoulders, with left and right juncture, holding it, anchoring, this kind of balancing. And I felt I could turn left, right bodily, physically, and turn all the spectrum of the time, the theta time, like past, present, future. And this I hadn't had before, and I'm very sure reconnect that with your speech.
It
Right?
was very inclusive. Very.
Yes. So I really want to point that I think the left brain is helpful with thought. Oops, something changes here.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. The left brain is a support for me.
Yes.
And I can support the support of the left brain by choosing what kind of information I take in. Right? And this I find a very, very, for me, a very important point, because both hemispheres interact.
Yeah, it is a really important point. Yeah, thank you for highlighting it. Yeah, it's the Ian McGilchrist's book is called The Master and the Emissary, the Divided Brain and the Making of Western World, or something like that. But there's the concept that these aren't equal partners. There's the master, which is actually the right hemisphere, although historically people always thought it was just this quiet, dumb part of the brain, but that actually that the emissary carries out the vision of the master. Yeah. So if we give it a storehouse, if our left brain has a storehouse of information that is helpful to the right hemisphere, that's Bonnie's formulation. It's very beautiful, I think.
I know. Because say I've read it a number of times, when the surgery, for whatever reason, the corpus callosum,
Yes,
the great big trunk that separates the two hemispheres,
yes,
is severed, you can blind one eye. You can talk to each hemisphere separately, and they often have different opinions.
Yeah, it's wild. It's
like we actually all do
people
have to.
Yeah. Okay, so I see we're about that time for our poem.
I just wanted to add something in there. I think focusing, one of the most powerful things about it is that it's this dialogue between right brain, left brain. And when we have information, like you were saying, Frida, taking in political information or something like that, that there's this step of taking it in and then going deeper with it, so that we're not just eating whatever is in the environment that we're taking in. And that's a very, very powerful, most important part of a democracy, is taking that information and taking it inside oneself and saying, you know, how is that? What do I think about that? Can I make room for that? Is that right to me? Where do I go from there? And it's that little cusp there of the edge of awareness, where we get to have that dialogue So I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Somebody asked me if I was going to do another book club on McGilchrist's book, and I have been playing around with doing it with his next book, which is called The Matter with Things. Because I'm not reading it by myself.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Now, Dorothy.
Yes, thank you so much.
This is from A Great Wagon by Rumi. You breathe, new shapes appear, and the music of a desire as widespread as spring begins to move like a great wagon. Drive slowly. Some of us walking alongside are lame. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep.
Wow.
You.
Beautiful, beautiful compilation. Thank you so much, Laura and Karen. This has been wonderful. I just want to flag up that we can use a few more people in our little practice groups that will meet 3 times online. So if you'd like to be in a little group with someone practicing facilitation 3 times online, please write to me or put your name in the chat. We'll see you next week.